Hello, eighth grade. Today we are starting chapter 10, which may or may not be the last chapter you do with me. We'll see. Um, but before I begin, I need to start off, as usual, with some really funny jokes, uh, particularly jokes about John C. Calhoun. So here it goes. Actually, there is no joke, it's just John C. Calhoun. Look into his eyes. That's a dead man walking if I've ever seen one. Oh my goodness. That guy. It's my sleep paralysis demon. Okay. Um, yeah, seriously, there is no joke. That face freaks me out. John C. Calhoun, as we'll see, was kind of a crazy guy. All right, so we're going to be talking about the United States in the buildup to the Civil War. So we're skipping ahead. We're skipping chapters 8 and 9, and we're going to be talking about um, the years 1846 to 1861. So these are the years preceding the Civil War. And as you might imagine, this is going to be a chapter that talks about divisions between the North and the South. So at this point in the country, there are two types of divisions in the country. There are divisions over slavery, and these divisions are geographic. People in the North, for the most part, um, want their states to be slavery free, right? There's a lot of abolitionists in the North who want slavery to be illegal everywhere. And there's a lot of people in the North who aren't necessarily abolitionists, but they definitely do not want slavery to spread into other parts of the country. Right? They want slavery to stay where it is in the South. They don't want it in the Louisiana Territory, and they don't want it in any other territory that the U.S. requires. So that's one kind of division in the country. The second kind of division in the country is a division between political parties. Right? So at this time, there are two political parties in the country. We have a two-party system throughout almost all of American history, and this is the case here. It's the same political divisions that existed in Chapter 7. It's a division between the Democrats and the Whigs. Now, what's interesting is the division between the Democrats and the Whigs is a lot weaker than the division between the North and the South over slavery. So what you get is an interesting situation where you have, yeah, Democrats and Whigs don't like each other, but the North and the South really don't like each other, right? So if you're a Whig and you're from the North, you're going to get along much better with a Democrat from the North than a fellow Whig from the South, because chances are you agree with the Democrat over really the only issue that anyone cares about at this time, the issue of slavery. So even though you're in a different political party than them, you see yourself as being more aligned with that person than from someone from your own political party who's in the South. All right, so let's pick up where Chapter 7 left off, the Missouri Compromise. So the Missouri Compromise, remember, was passed in order to basically allow Missouri to enter the Union as a slave state, allow Maine to enter the Union as a free state, to keep that delicate balance in the Congress between slave states and free states, right? But as Thomas Jefferson and others knew, the Missouri Compromise was like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet hole. It was a temporary solution to a much deeper problem. All the Missouri Compromise did is it said further states added to the Union that are part of the Louisiana Territory. If you're south of the southern border of Missouri, you can be a slave state. If you're north of the southern border of Missouri, you cannot be a slave state, right? So the Missouri Compromise was a temporary solution. Basically what it did is it kicked the can down the road for future generations of Americans to solve. Right? The divisions over slavery were going to intensify over the next few decades in spite of the Missouri Compromise. In fact, some would say because of the Missouri Compromise. All right, so basically Yeah, in the Louisiana Territory, northern states are going to be slave free, southern states are going to have slavery. And the idea was every time you add a slave state, there's going to be equal pressure to add a free state because you want to keep an even number of states in the Union so that there's a balance in the Congress between slave states and free states. This all uh, went out the window, though, with the Mexican American War. So we didn't learn about the Mexican American War. We skipped over it. It was talked about in, I think, chapter 8 or 9. But basically, the Mexican American War threw a wrench in this delicate balance that the Missouri Compromise had struck. And this is because the Mexican American War, which resulted in American victory, added a lot of new territory to the United States that was not part of the Missouri Compromise. So this would be California, Arizona, Texas, New Mexico, right? All this new territory was going to be added to the United States. It's not part of the Louisiana Purchase. Therefore, it is not part of the Missouri Compromise. So the question as to whether California is going to be a slave state or a free state is going to be a really big deal. All right. So before the Mexican American War ended, we have a 28-year period that we skipped over parts of it because we didn't do chapter 8 and 9. So between 1820 and 1848, there are a total of 8 new states added to the Union. Right, so now, by 1848, we have 15 slave states and 15 free states. And then in 1848, when the U.S. gets all this territory, so it's California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, well, part of New Mexico, part of Colorado. Sorry, I guess Texas isn't part of it. So we have all this new territory, thousands and thousands of acres, or thousands of miles of territory, basically. The question is going to be, okay, what are we going to do with all this territory? Eventually, states are going to emerge from it. Missouri Compromise doesn't apply to it. How do we stop this debate from blowing up in our faces? So in 1848, there was a bill that passed in the House of Representatives but failed in the Senate. And this bill was called the Wilmot Proviso. The Wilmot Proviso attempted to ban all Mexican American territory from entering the Union as a slave state, right? And the House of Representatives passed it, but of course the Senate did not. Now, why is it significant that the Senate did not pass it? Well, number one, that means it can't become a law. But number two, the only reason the Senate doesn't pass it is because half of the representatives in the Senate are from slave states, right? So they're voting as a block. You have the northern senators voting as one block and the southern senators voting from another block. They're completely ignoring party lines. They're voting according to North and South, not according to Whig and Democrat. So even though the Wilmot Proviso never became a law, this got Southerners really, really, really upset, right? Because they saw it for what it was. It was an attack on the institution of slavery. They knew if there's new states that are added to the Union and they are free states, the Wilmot Proviso is going to pass, right? And a lot of other bills that cut back on slavery are going to pass as well. Maybe a constitutional amendment banning slavery will pass, and we can't have that. All right. So even though the Wilmot Proviso fails to pass, it did create a new political party called the Free Soil Party. Because basically what happened is Democrats and Whigs realized, oh, our ideological differences don't really matter. The real divisions in this country are between Northerners and Southerners, people who support slavery and people who oppose it. So a new party called the Free Soil Party emerged out of the abolitionist movements in the Democrat and Whig Party. They got together and formed this Free Soil Party. And they said, we're going to take a really clear position on slavery. We are going to say all new territory added to the United States has to be free territory. Right? Democrats and Whigs, on the other hand, because they knew that their party bases were split on the slavery issue, never took a clear stance on slavery. Right? They didn't want to lose the support of the North and the South, so they stayed out of the slavery issue. This created a vacuum. Free Soil Party steps in and they're saying, we are abolitionists, or at least we're resistant to slavery. We don't want slavery in any new soil, any new territory added to the U.S. The Free Soil Party was weaker than the Democrats and the Whigs, but they did manage to prevent the Democrat candidate from winning the next presidential election. And this Democrat candidate supported something called popular sovereignty, which said that citizens of each state should vote on the slavery issue. We should get rid of the Missouri Compromise. We should just let each state decide for itself. And instead, there was a Whig candidate named Zachary Taylor who won. Now, Zachary Taylor was more anti-slavery than pro-slavery. Okay, so the Democrat candidate disagreed with Zachary Taylor over how to handle the slavery problem. Zachary Taylor becomes president because the Free Soil Party messes up the entire election, basically. All right, we're going to stop there. We will pick up with the second half of section 1 next time.